Bonjour mes amis, je m'appelle Jen Lefforge, and no, you do not need to adjust your computer screen. It's me, Jen, and I am back from Paris, and I had the most amazing trip. If you're not already following along on the trip vlogs themselves, I just put up the first installment this morning. I will put a link for that right here. You're also going to want to catch up on my packing video that I did. I just cannot tell you how amazingly beautiful this trip was. There were so many times when I just felt so grateful that I was there, and I brought you guys along with me. So having my camera to kind of talk to and keep me company when I was by myself, this was a solo trip for me. And although I did meet up with a lot of friends while I was there, when I was traveling and in my hotel and while I was touring Paris, I was completely alone. And so I jotted down, literally on the airplane on the way back, because I did have 8 hours, a few tips and tricks, things that I thought I was well prepared. I had done a ton of homework before I left, but amazingly, there are still a few things that I wish I had done differently, and that is what I'm sharing with you today. So I have written down 13 tips and tricks for international travel. I could have made this list much longer. In fact, it was originally 20, but I kind of condensed it down a little bit so that this isn't a marathon video. I do plan on doing a separate video about running the Disneyland Paris half, some tips and tricks about that, and a tips and tricks video about touring Disneyland Paris. So be looking for those in the weeks to come. Again, if you're not already subscribed and you don't have that little bell notification on, you may not know when I have a new video up, so make sure you do that. And also, I always post on Instagram as well, so that's always a great way to follow me. So my number one tip for heading off to Paris, either by yourself or with a group, is to allow extra time for everything. Not just the language barrier, but also cultural differences. Not so much in Paris, which is fast-paced as any big city tends to be, but especially out at Disneyland Paris, I felt that the pace is just different. It's not the same as the US parks. People are not in as big of a hurry. It's not unusual to wait 20 or 30 minutes in line for a counter service meal. And I think if you are frustrated by that and you expect it to be the same pace as it is in the US, you're just not going to have a good time because you're going to find yourself very angry. So just sort of relax, accept the slower pace, and I think you will have a much better time. Number two, make sure you have the phone numbers for your hotel, a local cab company, maybe your itinerary printed out in case you find yourself on the wrong train in France and you need to either make changes to an itinerary. Your phone is great, but if you're on your phone, you can't look at numbers, and it's not always convenient to be on speakerphone, and then you're going back and forth and you're trying to give them the information. I found that having everything printed out was extremely helpful. So just a one-page itinerary with all of your confirmation numbers, and then just for safety purposes, the name of your hotel and a local cab company is not a bad idea, because then even if your phone dies, which mine did, you have that available to you. So make sure you keep that in mind. Okay, hold please. My iPad keeps timing out. I know there's a way to make that not do that, but that's okay, we can deal. Number three, bring your own amenities such as lotion. A lot of the French hotels don't have lotion, and they don't even have it available in the shops. I found that the hotels were not quite as equipped with toiletries and things like that as the US hotels are. So even things like, I had a cold while I was there, I didn't have my Mucinex on me. You know, the medicines are different over there. It isn't that you can't get it, but it may not be convenient for you to get it. So just some small comfort items like that. Also keep in mind, most of the French hotels do not have washcloths. I don't know why, but that was true of both hotels I was in and the Disneyland hotels that my friends were in. So washcloths just aren't a thing. So just kind of be aware that the amenities are not going to be the same as you might find in an American hotel. Number four, don't underestimate the effects of jet lag. I didn't get as much done in Paris as I would have liked, simply because I was just tired. And certainly when you're traveling by yourself, if you get yourself to the point of exhaustion, there's no backup, right? You don't have somebody to say, I'm exhausted, you figure it out. You're all there is. So it's very important that you feel good and strong. And if you're starting to fade a little bit, maybe cut the day short, maybe alter your plans. For me, if I get exhausted, then I can start making not so great decisions and my brain doesn't function as well. And being alone, it was important that I set realistic expectations. So just know that jet lag is a thing and it will take a few days for your body to acclimate. Number 5, know what time the last bus or train leaves. And don't get on the wrong train. I will have a whole section where you will hear all about my story about getting on the wrong train leaving Paris, not even realizing I was on the last train of the night that goes between Paris and the Disneyland Paris station. It could have been a very dangerous situation because again, my phone was dead and on and on and on. So know the train schedules ahead of time and also know that just like a lot of the US trains I know that are here in Atlanta, the MARTA, it may change over the weekends and that's what I fell victim to. I was relying on my Google Maps and it didn't account for the fact that the train had changed a little bit for the weekend schedule. So you really want to make sure that you're leaving yourself plenty of time. And when I got off the train at Disneyland Paris and they turned the lights out and I realized it was the last train of the day, I kept thinking, oh my God, what would have happened if I had missed that train? So just keep those things in mind about train schedules. Let's see, number 6, have cash. There are not ATMs available in Disneyland Paris. In Paris, there were plenty of ATMs, but at Disneyland Paris, there was one ATM machine and it is in the downtown Disney area. So it's not as readily available. Now it is true that credit cards, you can use credit cards for everything, but more than once I had a cab driver that was struggling with his credit card machine, the Wi-Fi wasn't working correctly or whatever the case may be, where I really wish I had just had cash to give him because then I could have just been on my way. Also for tipping, none of the Disneyland Paris hotels leave you a space to tip because tipping is not expected. So having a few of the €2 coins in your pocket so that you can easily tip people that you feel like go above and beyond. I think that's a really good rule of thumb because cash, after all, is king. The ATM machines at the airport have a really good exchange rate generally, and I just wish I had gotten out a little more cash than I did. So make sure you have cash. Even though you're going to use your credit card, my advice would be to have cash as well. Bring your own toilet paper. Because especially at Charles de Gaulle, they really seem to struggle with that. So ladies either have tissues or have the little Charmin rolls, and I won't say anything more about that, but we all know that you don't want to be stuck in that situation and it doesn't take up a lot of space, so bring your own toilet paper. Number 8, bring multiple adapters and understand that stuff will take longer to charge. I did not account for that, and so things like my external battery that at home may charge in an hour or 2, in Paris with the voltage adapter required all night to charge, which is why I got into the trouble that I did with my dead iPhone. Plus, because I'm a vlogger, I had all kinds of different things to charge and I only had one adapter. I'll put a link below to the adapter that I took with me. It also has a USB charger, but in hindsight, I would have taken 3 or 4 adapters because think about how many outlets you typically use in a hotel room, and I definitely needed more than one. So that was a rookie mistake that I will not make again. Okay, Mr. iPad, what's our next one? All right, plan your flight so that your room can be ready when you arrive. I had a 6 a.m. arrival, which seemed like a great idea when I planned the trip, but I couldn't get into my room until 3. And you'll see in the vlog, actually, I couldn't even get into the hotel where I was originally booked, and they moved me to a different hotel, and it was kind of a nightmare. Not a nightmare, it was inconvenient. But if I had arrived later, then I would have actually been able to go to my room, shower, change my clothes. When you've flown all night, it's not awesome to be homeless. And yes, you can store your bags. And yes, they allowed me to use the women's locker room for their swimming pool, but I'm rifling through my bags and I'm trying to balance everything. And traveling alone, I think you need as much comfort as you can get. And even if you're traveling with someone, but it would have been very nice to have my room available when I arrived. So in hindsight, if I have a choice, I will book a flight that gets me in around 1 o'clock so that way I'm arriving at my hotel when there's a really strong shot that I'll have a room available with a bathroom and a shower and all of those things to make me feel a little bit more human. So that would have been really awesome. Number 10, learn some French so that you don't come across as a jerk. I know that you're worried that when you say je ne parle pas français, which is I do not speak French, or parlez-vous anglais, which is do you speak English, that you're butchering it, my accent is terrible. You will come across as far more of a jerk if you don't even try. I found that most Parisians, certainly, and even most people out at Disneyland Paris, which is on the outskirts, do speak some English, and I had Google Translate on my phone, so we would just sort of muddle through, and I would put what I wanted to say into Google Translate, and we just kind of cooperated that way. I had zero problems with people who didn't speak my language trying to help me out as best they could. In fact, the woman that helped me get on the right train, she spoke almost no English and I speak almost no French, and somehow we were able to communicate and find out that we both have teenagers, and I found out that she works for a restaurant, and we were able to find some commonalities. So just make an effort. I think it's quite frankly very lazy to go to a foreign country and not at least try to learn how to say, thank you and please and excuse me and all of that. There are plenty of online videos that will give you what you need to know. You should have an ability to use a few French phrases, and it will make you seem much more like a good guest in a foreign country than if you just try to assume that everyone speaks English. And I found that to be true even at Disneyland Paris, where everyone does typically speak English. Make an effort, just as you would expect someone to do if they came from another country and they were visiting here. So learn some French. Let's see. Make friends with your hotel staff. They will hook you up. I did find that in France, a lot less is readily available, and you do have to ask more questions. For instance, I didn't know there was coffee available first thing in the morning. Lots of different amenities that, in America, I think we print everything out and it's plastered everywhere. In France, there's sort of this expectation that if you need something, you're going to ask the question. So get to know your hotel staff. Most, if not all of them, have been, foreigners in a strange land. They are very empathetic. They are very well trained. They typically all speak English. So really make friends with them. I found that my hotel staff at the Radisson Blu Disneyland Park was very accommodating, and they really did go out of their way to make sure that I was okay. So that was very helpful. Let's see. Have a crepe from the stand in front of the Eiffel Tower, the one by the steps that go down to the Seine. It is a spiritual experience. The guy that works the crepe stand there was the most efficient person I ever saw in my life. It was reasonable, and I'm sorry, but just eating a crepe and standing there with the Eiffel Tower on one side of me and the Seine on the other side of me, it was a little overwhelming, but I kind of became addicted to crepes and waffles, which the scale is showing, and Bordeaux. Anyway, that's for another day. And then lastly, embrace la différence. You're not in America. And that is not a bad thing. They're going to be paced differently. They're going to do things differently. The restaurants are going to operate differently. Look at that as part of the adventure, because if you wanted everything to be just like it was at home, you never would have traveled in the first place. So having that mindset of embracing things that you don't understand really will make your adventure more enjoyable. So have you been overseas recently? Would you add anything to my list? Any tips or tricks you'd like to share? Please put those in the comments below. If you have any questions about my trip, I am thinking about doing a whole separate Q&A video about international travel, and in particular my trip to France. So please put those below. If I get enough, I'll go ahead and film that separate Q&A video, and I think that that would be a lot of fun. Thanks for joining me. These were just my initial thoughts. There will be a lot more to come about this trip because I learned so much about travel, about myself, and I really did have a fantastic time. So I'm glad you were here. Make sure you subscribe, like this video, comment below, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.